The year is 2031. Zane Knight has just defeated Chicken Morris in Season 60. Winners at War 2. Live Free or Die on the Edge. It's a working title. Zane is now a 3-time Survivor champion, and all is right in the world. World peace is just the beginning. Okay, but like, I would watch that. Anyway, internet, my name is Peridiam, and let's talk about the Survivor First Boots who could have won. In an alternate timeline. In a world where reality has flipped upside down. There is a lot of stretching about to go down in this video, so work with me here. I am looking for First Boots who either displayed qualities I've seen in winners in this timeline, or just feasible paths where had said First Boot not been taken out, perhaps there's an opening and they go on to live a life of luxury. Either way, let's get on with the list. Here is the first Survivor First Boot who I believe could have won. Given this is a video about firsts, perhaps it's only fitting we start at the very beginning. Yep, pull out your ukuleles. The first First Boot on this list is the first First Boot who hails from Season 1 Survivor Borneo. Sonia frickin' Christopher is now a Survivor champion and the world is healing. So, the big question. How does Sonia win? Simple. Suppose she doesn't get voted out first, because that's the timeline we're in. Suppose Rudy goes first. Suppose she replaces him in the Tagi 4 as the older player. Suppose she goes with them all the way to the Final Four. Suppose the women vote out Hatch. Suppose her charming personality and lovable ukulele playing prove too potent for that jury over the likes of Kelly or Sue Hawk. Hey, reason with me here. If Rudy can be a frontrunner for being old and likable, why not Sonia?
Bye-bye blues, thanks to Prozac. Bye-bye blues, give me Paxil, then is shining. No more whining, life is hell, but I'm swell. Bye-bye blues.
The winner of the first Survivor competition is Sonia.
One of my least favorite First Boots from one of my least favorite seasons, another player I think could possibly win their season is John from Season 5 Survivor Thailand. And I know, if you remember John, you would know how crazy of a take this is. John Raymond a Survivor winner? Well, consider the vibe of the Chewigan tribe. Consider how it was largely run by the men and their egos. Consider how they handled the Ted and Gandia situation, how they championed Brian to win, how Clay almost won. Yeah, okay, when you consider all of that, I unfortunately ask you this. Why not consider John as a winner? Strategically, who really knows what he's got cooked up? Is he even able to stop the Brian steamroll? Truthfully, I don't really know. We have very little to work off of, but that logic is gonna apply to every First Boot anyway, so ultimately, when I look at the cast, the tribes, the vibes, the jury, and what went down, regardless of whether I like it or not, I'll put John on this list and be thankful he was the First Boot.
All of a sudden I'm like, okay, wait a minute. This has never happened before. I had to start thinking, okay, I got to put my game face on for, you know, how do you jive with just all men in a group? Holy moly, I hope I get on the strong guys team. Who's to say who's the most vulnerable? But I know that, you know, I think everybody's pretty much thinking, you know, we need a strong team.
The third First Boot on this list is from Season 9 Vanuatu, and it's Brooke. Who is Brooke, you may ask? He was a younger guy in his mid-20s who was in good shape. He was self-described as being sociable, likable, easy to get along with. In the premiere episode, the men's tribe lost that first challenge, largely thanks to Chris botching the balance beam, and so Chris seemed like the easy target. The problem for Brooke was that the older men of the tribe, the men who weren't in as good a shape as Brooke, Brady, or John, decided to band together to prevent the young studs from taking control. Brooke was kind of put in a corner, and idols didn't exist yet, so the alliance known as the Fat Five, they targeted anyone who they deemed not fat. Brooke was toast. He was voted out first for being the biggest threat on the tribe, and damn, Brooke, we barely knew ya. But hey, had the numbers swung your way, perhaps you're amusingly the Chris of the season and you go on to seize the day.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. I had no idea.
I'm amazed. All the power to him. I totally think that's inspirational. Personally, I think there's a lot of young guys on the team, guys who are going to be targets. I feel like I am one of the stronger, younger guys who's going to be a target.
Right now, we're in charge of who's getting voted up. as of right now.
The fourth first boot who could have won had she not been put on a try before with Cerie Fields is Timber Tina from season 12 Panama, Exile Island. Talk about starting your Survivor experience on hard mode. You're up against an unassuming Cerie on day one. Tina has perhaps the saddest story of any player in the history of the show, and yet I think given her personality, her work ethic, her desire to play the game, and how the season panned out, had Tina somehow survived that first tribal council, I could see her do well with this cast. This was a cast of wacky characters who valued workhorses. The two frontrunners were Terry and Aris after all. And given Tina was a lumberjill and a camp provider, perhaps she also crushes a few challenges too. She had nowhere to hide in that first episode and was clipped too soon. And if a first boot season ever happens, Jeff, I need her on the short list.
Yes! Well, starting a fire was highly successful for us. Once you hit that flint, holy shnikes, it's like a 4th of July fireworks parade. I don't think Cerie's had a lot of outdoor experience. She said she hates leaves. Didn't anyone tell her what show she was going on? I'm like thinking leaves are the least of your problem, honey.
Somebody has to go, and your fear of leaves was my biggest factor because we have to go on the leaves too.
The fifth first boot who I think could have won is actually barely a first boot at all. More just the first person to leave the season, and that is Johnny Fairplay from season 16 Micronesia, Fans versus Favorites. Now I've called Fairplay's second stint a disappointment. It's short-lived. But on the flip side of that coin, half of the premiere episode of this season is dedicated to him running circles around the Favorites tribe. Never mind that Fairplay was the swing vote prior to him deciding to ask to get voted out, I think there's a good chance he finds himself in a great position to run the game for the immediate future, if not longer. And because we have a whole season of his from season 7 to work with, I feel pretty comfortable saying all of that. Of any first boot I'll mention in this video, Fairplay is one of the strongest, and I will never not wonder what could have been had he stuck around.
Right now, I could go either way and totally change the game in two different directions. Two groups I'm playing are the four of Yowman, Eliza, Jonathan, Amy, and then you have the alliance of Ozzy, James, Parvati, and Amanda. I think it's insane that there's 9 other of your favorite survivors of all time, and they all believe what I say. Have you not watched this show before?
Number 6 is going to be a fun little pick out of left field, but when you consider the entire field, maybe it's not so far-fetched after all. I have Marisa from season 19 Survivor Samoa. And I mostly have Marisa on here for one good reason. She sussed out Russell Hantz in episode 1, before seemingly anyone else. She was voted out for daring to lift a finger to Russell, the guy in charge, but had she not, or had Russell not targeted her, or had anything else happened, she sticks around, and perhaps she's in Natalie's position, or just in a good position within the tribe. She only seemed to rustle Russell's feathers, and that cost her. But remember, we're in a different timeline, we're in the alternate timeline, and I don't feel too bad about what she brought to the premiere. I think she's got a path, and it likely still results in Russell getting second and losing to another one of those quote-unquote dumbass girls.
There's a guy who looks as tough as nails. He looks like a pit bull. He's like, I wouldn't want to mess with him, that's for sure.
My strategy is to be able to have a secret alliance with each one of these dumb girls.
You know, the most important
thing is honesty.
Russell is an interesting character because I really trusted him off the start, but he's really been scrambling with everyone, and he was trying to get people's sympathy. I'm starting to feel like he's pretty slimy. But you've been, like, talking to everybody.
I know.
So I don't know why you've been doing that, and it makes me a little wary.
All right, it's time. The first boot of all first boots. You know she had to make this list, so let's pop the cork. Let's finally talk about Francesca Hoagie from season 22 Redemption Island and season 26 Caramoan. And ultimately, if I had to pick one of the two seasons that I think she could have won, I'm gonna say it's gonna be Caramoan. Franny is the only person thus far to get voted out first twice. And yet, in some strange way, I am not too unimpressed with her ousters either time. I actually think that she's one of the stronger first boots in the series history and was put into unfortunate circumstances on both seasons. First, she was up against Boston Rob, a 4-time player, and because she had a brain, she had to go. Likewise, her closest ally Christina found an idol, and thus Franny became collateral damage. Second, she was also with Phillip, the madman, and he was quite antagonistic toward her, which put her in a tough spot. Combine that with the fact that Francesca was brought back to serve as a foil for Phillip on season 26, and given that he is the perfect goat to work with and had enough people in his corner, and Fran wasn't one of them, certainly not the second time, suddenly she's voted out first again for pretty much the same reasons by the same people. Had Francesca stayed, particularly on Caramoan, I think being a favorite and working alongside that tribe could net her a much more successful run. Heck, I think her only competition might be Cochran, maybe Dawn, honestly, given how the season panned out.
The good part of it is that if I get voted out, I could come back into the game. But the possibility of getting voted out was so not a reality to me that I only saw it as a downside.
She stood up on the mat, looked at Jeff and said, I don't want to play with him because he's too sneaky. She knows my game. So I don't want someone like that on my tribe.
I think a lot of people think that my first season I got kind of a raw deal and got stuck in an impossible situation, which I totally agree.
You can say you want to play the most strategic, cold-blooded game in the world, but emotions do enter the equation. The fact that I like her doesn't help. There's a part of me that's like, maybe I shouldn't vote her off just because that would be cruel.
Another random first boot who I think could make a great run had they not randomly been sniped is Darnell from season 32, Co Wrong. Darnell is perhaps most infamous for aqua dumping in the ocean in front of everyone, which is a rare sight to behold in an episode. His tribe lost the first challenge, he didn't really seem to help them much, and then he was taken out because it seemed like Jason and Scott wanted to be the alpha males on the tribe, as if Darnell was imposing on their reign somehow. Darnell seemed like a chill guy. He was fairly fit, although he's a lot fitter today than he was on the show, and his personality seemed to be pretty low maintenance, agreeable. Co Wrong became a season run by the women, but I think Darnell's nature lands him on the right side of history here, either opposing Scott and Jason and Nick come the merge, or I guess adding one more to their numbers where he probably beats all of them in front of the jury anyway. I mean, heck, in this timeline he definitely does. I know it's a bit fan fiction-y, but hell, this whole video is anyway.
When people in this game are not talking to you, they're talking about you. We have tribal tonight. I'm a good candidate of going home, so I'm going to do what I got to do. Growing up in Chicago is pretty tough. There's a lot of stuff that I learned, and I'm going to bring them instincts into this game. I use my gut. This gut don't lie to me.
The minute I find out something, I'm going to let you know.
And right now, my gut tells me, go use the bathroom.
Let's talk about the twinnies, Nadia and Natalie Anderson, the identical twin sisters who played together on season 29, San Juan del Sur, and what we saw unfold was truly poetic. Nadia was voted out first, meanwhile her sister, Natalie, went on to win the season in a pretty glorious fashion. But what if Nadia doesn't get voted out first? What if she sticks around in the game? What if she manages to meet up with her sister at the swap or the merge, and suddenly Natalie is now the bigger threat of the two, and hey, when they get down to the end, perhaps it's Natalie who goes before Nadia. In our timeline, Natalie managed to carve herself a comfortable alliance for the second half of the game after they blindsided her new 20, Jeremy. But suppose this happens to Nadia instead, and it's Natalie who gets sniped randomly or serves as a shield for Nadia. Having watched them compete on The Amazing Race, I know Nadia is strong. She's determined. They absolutely share a lot of the same personality traits. They are a package deal. So what if they get that chance to deal twice as much damage?
And help us bring it home finally. Third time's a charm for us.
Let it catch, not even that.
No, he was going.
Nadia's a known element. Obviously, she's been on The Amazing Race. She's shown that she can backstab somebody. So the rest of the tribe, I don't know that about. Nadia, she's proven it.
So all the girls get together. It was a good opportunity for us all to recognize that we need to stick together at this point, and our options are very slim if we don't.
So Nadia got voted off. Now it's just like really good motivation for me to keep my head in the game and just play hard so that I can just at least go as far as I can.
Nadia had to be on this list, but the curious case here is how I'm also going to be including her sister, the winner of season 29, Natalie. Because Natalie returned on season 40, Winners at War, and again, in a poetic sense, just like her sister 11 seasons prior, she was voted out first. Just like Nadia, Natalie was the first one out. Now it needs to be said, yes, season 40 had a special twist that kept Natalie technically in in the game. She was in like a waiting room lobby and then managed to get back into the main game on day 35 in the finale. Natalie managed to slice and dice until she reached the final tribal, and then she received 4 jury votes to win, landing her in 2nd place. Natalie almost won season 40, the all-winner season, after being the first person voted out. Let me just say that louder for the people in the back who didn't hear me. The first boot, literally, almost won the game. I can't look at this topic of this video and not include Natalie because she is the literal answer to the video's hypothesis. And we even heard that had Natalie put herself into fire making against Tony at the final 4 and she beats him, which she probably does, she stands an even greater chance to win. Natalie Anderson is the epitome of a first boot who could have won in an alternate timeline, and we didn't even have to change timelines to see it almost happen.
I don't think it's hit me yet that I just got voted off first. It's really weird holding my own torch. I've never picked up a torch at tribal council. You know, I've never got voted off. My first time around playing in Nicaragua.
This is water.
Nadia, my twin sister, was the first voted off. That forced me to grind until I won that season.
Winner of Survivor San Juan.
And so I have to do the same thing here. I left this camp day 2, and it's unreal that I'm even saying this, but I made it back on Survivor. Like, this has been the goal since I was first voted off. Even though I have a very non-traditional path to the final 3, I took the hand I was dealt and said, you know what? I'm gonna play the best damn extinction game I can.
And those are the top 10 Survivor first boots who could have won in an alternate timeline. And let me just say, theoretically, quantum physics tells us any of these first boots could win. And who knows? Maybe all of our Survivor winners were first boots in another timeline. Either way, let me know of any of the first ones out who you think stood a chance. And yes, just gotta say, I almost put Zayn on this list. Believe me, it was a struggle not to. A big thank you to my patrons for being the first ones to watch these videos as I release them early every week on Patreon. Thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to avoid ruffling too many feathers on your way out. And I will see you in the next one, once we all watch the first boot take the walk of shame. Hate to see you go, but I love to watch you leave.
So you just made a bad move? Yeah, very, very bad. Very bad, very bad. It's like when your car runs out of gas and you think, I can make it to the gas station, I can make it, and then bam! You're sitting on the side of the road, that's what happened, you know what I mean?